You say it won't happen again. You swear you've learned your lesson. But here you are, once more, standing in the ruins of a decision you promised you'd never repeat. It's not that you're weak. It's not that you're stupid. It's that something inside you is looping on autopilot beneath your awareness. You can't fix what you won't face. And the patterns you ignore, they become prisons. This isn't about shame. It's about truth. And once you see what's really happening, you can finally break free. Because the first step to change is admitting you're stuck. You already know. You knew the second it happened, that quiet sinking in your stomach, the one that whispers, not again. And yet you keep going. You brush it off. You tell yourself it's different this time. But the mirror doesn't lie. And deep down, you've been avoiding it. Because to really look at yourself means asking the hard questions. It means slowing down, stopping the noise, and sitting with what you don't want to see. And that's the part most people skip. Not because they're lazy, but because they're scared. Scared of what they might find. Scared that maybe the problem isn't the world. Maybe it's them. You see, life is always trying to teach you something. But if you keep looking away every time the lesson shows up, you don't grow, you loop. Same job, different boss. Same heartbreak, different name. Same frustration, different year. And then you tell yourself, this is just how life is. No, it's not. This is how your life is until you choose to face it. Most people wait for a crisis before they wake up, before they look in that mirror and say, I'm the common denominator. But what if you didn't wait? What if you stopped blaming the circumstances and started looking at the patterns, the things that just happen to you? They don't just happen, they repeat, because somewhere deep down, you allow them to. And I get it. It's painful to admit that, to own it, to say, I walked myself into this. But that's the beginning of freedom, because what you claim, you can change. And if you're brave enough to look in the mirror, really look, not with judgment, not with shame, but with clarity, you'll start to see it. You'll see the choices that became habits, the emotions that became stories, the fears that became rules. And then you'll understand something most people never do. Mistakes don't repeat because you're broken. They repeat because you're blind. And once you're willing to see, you stop being a victim of your past and you become the author of your future. But you have to look, and you have to be honest about what you find. The mirror is always there, but it won't force you to face it. Only you can do that. And the moment you do, everything changes. You think you're in control. You think you're making decisions with logic, intention, awareness, but you're not always. Because beneath the surface, under the smile, under the plan, there's another force at work, the part of you that doesn't speak with words, but pulls the strings anyway. The unconscious. It's shaping your thoughts, filtering your reality, choosing your patterns before you even know they're patterns. It's like trying to drive a car, but the wheel moves on its own. You're gripping it, sure, but something else is guiding the turns. And this is where the mistake loop begins. You don't repeat mistakes because you want to. You repeat them because something deep inside you believes this is what you deserve, this is what's normal, this is what feels right, even when it's wrong. You say, I just have bad luck. No, you have unexamined programming. That moment you said yes when you meant no, that wasn't logic, that was fear. That time you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up, that wasn't peacekeeping, that was old pain saying don't rock the boat. And the people you keep choosing, they're not random, they match your unfinished story. This is the hidden driver, the beliefs you never questioned, the wounds you never healed, the fears you never admitted. And as long as you let them drive, you'll end up in the same place, over and over again, until you do something different, until you get curious, until you say, why do I do this? Not with shame, not with blame, but with the willingness to listen. Because here's the truth most people avoid. You can't change what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you refuse to look at. But the moment you pause and really ask, what's driving me right now? You take back the wheel. You begin to choose instead of react. You begin to live instead of repeat. And that's when life gets different, not because the world changes, but because you do. So, slow down. Don't just push through. Don't just explain it away. Ask yourself, is this me? Or is this my past acting through me? If it's not the real you, let it go. Take the driver's seat. Because you're not here to be on autopilot. You're here to wake up. And waking up starts now. It doesn't make sense, does it? Why you stay in places that hurt, why you hold on to habits that break you, why you go back to what you swore you'd outgrown. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't choose what's best. We choose what's familiar, even if it hurts, even if it wrecks us again and again, because at least we know that pain, at least we've survived it before. There's a strange comfort in repetition, a strange safety in the known. You already know how to navigate the storm, so you stop looking for the sun. And when something good shows up, something healthy, calm, and kind, it feels foreign. It feels fake. It feels wrong. You pull back. You second guess it. You say, this can't be real, not because it's not real, but because you've never known peace that didn't come after chaos. You've never known love without conditions. You've never trusted ease, so you return to the argument, to the dysfunction, to the pattern, and you call it normal because it's all you've known. But comfort isn't always good, and familiar doesn't always mean right. That's how people get stuck for years. In the same relationships, the same money problems, the same cycle of starting and stopping. They aren't lazy, they're just loyal to the version of life that feels most like home. Even if that home was full of noise, fear, or silence, you don't just break patterns with willpower. You break them by admitting that comfort isn't the goal. Growth is, and growth is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be, because you're leaving what you've always known to become someone you've never been. And there will be fear, there will be pullbacks, there will be moments you'll want to go back just because the unknown feels too empty. But stay with it, stay in the silence, stay in the space where your old life doesn't fit and your new one isn't built yet. That's where freedom starts. Not in comfort, but in courage. And if you're willing to feel uncomfortable, willing to sit with unfamiliar peace, willing to trust what you've never had, you'll find something better than what you know. You'll find what you need. But only if you stop mistaking comfort for safety, only if you stop calling pain home. You were not made to repeat what hurt you. You were made to grow beyond it. You were handed a script the day you were born. Not with words, but with experiences, with glances, rules, silence, and expectations. And over time, you learned your lines. You learned who to be to get love. You learned what to hide to avoid pain. You learned when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. You didn't question it. You were too young to know you could, so you played your part. You became the pleaser, the fixer, the strong one, the invisible one. You shaped yourself to fit the story, and the story became your truth. But here's the secret no one tells you. That script wasn't written by you. It was passed down by wounded parents, by scared teachers, by a culture that values control over expression. And you've been acting it out ever since. Not because it's who you are, but because it's what you've always known. That's why you keep repeating the same mistakes. You're not just reliving choices. You're reenacting a narrative, a story where you never win, where you're always too much or not enough, where success is fleeting and peace is borrowed. But here's the truth. You are not the story. You are the storyteller. And you can rewrite it. You can pause, reread the lines, and say, this part no longer fits who I am. You can give yourself new roles, new endings, new beliefs. But first, you have to see the old ones. You have to look at the patterns without flinching. You have to say, yes, I've played this role. Yes, I learned this line. Yes, it kept me safe. And then choose something else. This isn't about blame. It's about authorship. It's about picking up the pen and deciding to write the next chapter yourself. You don't owe loyalty to an identity that no longer serves you. You don't have to stay stuck in a part that was written in fear. Because the moment you realize you've been following a script is the moment you become free enough to change it. And the more conscious you become, the more choice you have. You can say no to patterns, yes to peace, yes to growth, yes to becoming someone new, someone more honest, more whole, more real. Not because the old you was bad, but because you've outgrown that role. And this time you write the story, one honest sentence at a time. You didn't mean to bury it, you were just trying to survive. That heartbreak you never talked about, that anger you swallowed for years, that sadness you pushed down because no one had room for it. You told yourself it was better this way, that moving on meant moving past, that if you didn't feel it, it couldn't hurt you. But that's not how it works. Emotions don't disappear, they wait. And the longer they wait, the more power they collect, until one day you snap at someone who didn't deserve it. You isolate without knowing why. You sabotage something good. Or you fall back into a pattern that you swore you'd left behind, and you don't understand it. You say, why do I keep doing this? Because the pain you buried didn't die. It just went underground. You think ignoring it is strength. It's not. It's delay. It's deferral. It's a ticking clock. And sooner or later, buried feelings surface, but not as feelings, as behaviors, as mistakes, as habits you hate. You can't heal what you won't feel, and you can't feel what you keep avoiding. So you repeat, not because you're broken, but because your heart is still waiting to be heard. That version of you from years ago, the one who didn't feel safe enough to cry, or angry enough to scream, or tired enough to rest, they're still in there, not ruining your life, but asking for your attention. And the patterns you keep falling into, that's them reaching out. That's the message. Not you're a failure, but there's something here that needs your love. You've tried to think your way out of this, tried logic, strategy, hustle, goals, but the wound isn't in your mind, it's in your chest, it's in the part of you that learned to hide everything just to stay safe. So now it's time, not to explode, not to fall apart, but to feel what you once avoided, not all at once, not like a flood, but piece by piece. You feel it, you name it, you let it breathe, and then you let it go. Because your emotions aren't your enemy. They're messengers, they're guides, they're signals. And when you finally stop burying them, you stop repeating the behavior they've been hiding in. You break the pattern, not with force, but with feeling. And that's how you start again, clean, clear, free. You've been trained to hate your mistakes, to flinch when they're mentioned, to cover them up, laugh them off, or carry them like shame. But what if they're not the problem? What if they're the compass? Every time you repeat a mistake, there's something beneath it. Not weakness, but information. Not failure, but a signal. It's pointing somewhere. And if you're brave enough to stop running from it, you'll see what it's been trying to show you all along. Because here's what no one says. The mistake isn't the issue. It's what you don't learn from it that hurts you. When you say, I should have known better, that's not growth. That's guilt. And guilt keeps you stuck. But curiosity, that's where change begins. Ask, why did I make that choice? What was I feeling before I did it? What part of me needed something, anything, even if it was wrong? There's always a reason, always a lesson hiding in the wreckage. The person you became in survival mode, they weren't trying to destroy your life. They were doing their best with what they had. And they made mistakes. Of course they did. But you're not that person anymore. Not if you choose to learn. So what if instead of hating the mistake, you thanked it? Not for the pain, but for the wake-up call, for the pattern it exposed, for the blind spot it uncovered. Because every mistake you make is a mirror, and it's asking you to look deeper. It's not there to punish you. It's there to teach you. It's saying, you still haven't healed that wound. You still haven't asked for what you need. You still don't believe you deserve better. That's not an insult. It's an invitation, and you don't have to accept it with shame. You can accept it with power. You can say, this mistake showed me where I need to grow. This moment hurt, but it also helped. This isn't the end of me. It's the edge of something new. Because you're not your worst day. You're what you do with it. So let the mistake be your teacher, not your jailer, not your identity, just a page in your book, a chapter, a turning point. Because you'll keep making mistakes. We all do. But if you stop fearing them, if you start learning from them, then every wrong turn becomes part of the right path. That's how growth happens. Not by being perfect, but by being willing to evolve. One lesson at a time. You say you want to change. You say you're tired of the cycles, the pain, the letdowns. But then something strange happens. You sabotage it. You back off. You go quiet when it's time to act. You ghost the opportunity. You chase the old instead of stepping into the new. Why? Because the pattern isn't just something you do. It's something you are, or at least something you believe you are. You've built an identity around it. You've told yourself stories like, I'm the one who always gets hurt. I'm the one who never finishes. I'm just not lucky. I always screw it up. And over time, those words become walls, not to keep others out, but to keep you in. Because once your identity is built around a pattern, breaking that pattern feels like death. Even if it's killing you slowly. You might say, I don't want to be this way. But deep down, you're terrified of who you'll be without it. What happens if you're no longer the victim? No longer the underdog, no longer the fixer, the fighter, the failure? Who are you without your survival role? That's the real fear. Not change, but identity loss. But let me tell you something. Your identity is not fixed. It's not some sacred object you have to defend at all costs. It's clay. It's paint. It's language. And you can rewrite it. You can say, I used to think I was the one who always failed, but now I know I was just repeating what felt familiar. You can say, I used to shrink to stay safe, but now I'm learning to stand. Because the old identity was useful once. It helped you survive. But you're not here to survive forever. You're here to evolve. And that means letting go of who you think you are, so you can become who you were always meant to be. No, it won't be easy. Your brain will resist. Your ego will scream. Your habits will protest, because they're all trying to protect the story that kept you safe. But safe isn't the same as fulfilled, and known isn't the same as true. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to update your identity, to look at yourself and say, that story was never really me. And then write a new one, not out of desperation, but out of choice, out of power, out of truth, because you don't have to protect the past anymore. You're not here to defend an identity. You're here to discover one, the one that's been waiting just beyond the pattern. You're on the edge of something good. You feel it. That relationship is finally healthy. That opportunity feels real. That habit is sticking. And then, like clockwork, you blow it up, you pick a fight, you miss the deadline, you disappear, you go back to what broke you. And afterward you say, I don't know what happened, but you do. Deep down you know. Because sabotage isn't random. It's not weakness, it's not stupidity, it's protection. It's your nervous system screaming, this feels unfamiliar, therefore it must be dangerous. You've been conditioned to associate change with risk. So when something good shows up, your body treats it like a threat, not because it is a threat, but because it doesn't match the pain you've come to expect. You've adapted to chaos. You've normalized struggle. You've become fluent in disappointment. So peace, success, love without tension, they feel wrong. They feel unsafe. They feel like lies. So you sabotage. You crash the plane before it even lands. Not because you want to fall, but because falling is the only thing that's ever felt familiar. And until you realize that sabotage is just unhealed fear, you'll keep calling it bad luck. But it's not luck. It's protection in disguise. It's the part of you that's still convinced you're not ready, you're not worthy, you don't belong. And here's the truth. You can't willpower your way out of sabotage. You have to listen to it, understand it. Talk to the version of yourself who keeps pulling the plug. Ask them, what are you afraid will happen if I succeed? What are you protecting me from? What story are you still believing? Because there's always a story. And until you rewrite that story, you'll keep reenacting it, one crash at a time. But you can stop. You can catch yourself in the moment and say, this feeling isn't danger, it's discomfort. This isn't sabotage, it's fear pretending to be safety. And then you breathe, you stay, you don't run, you don't lash out, you don't quit. You sit with the fear long enough to see it for what it really is. A shadow, not a wall, a habit, not a prophecy. Because the truth is, you're not afraid of failing. You've done that plenty. You know how to recover from pain. What you don't know is how to feel safe in success, how to trust peace, how to accept good without waiting for the bad. That's the new muscle. That's the new work. And it starts by seeing sabotage, not as a flaw, but as a message. Something inside you is finally ready to change. People treat you how you let them. It's not fair, but it's true. And every time you let something slide, every time you bite your tongue, lower your standards, swallow your truth, you teach the world who you are. Not the real you, the tolerated you, the version that makes others comfortable while you stay uncomfortable. You repeat mistakes, not just through your choices, but through your silence, your boundaries, your reactions. And the more you tolerate what drains you, the more it becomes normal, expected, invisible, until one day you wake up exhausted from carrying the weight of what you never asked for. But here's the hardest part. It's not just about others. It's about what you teach yourself. Every time you stay in a place that doesn't see you, you confirm the belief that maybe you're not meant to be seen. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you reinforce the lie that this is all you're worth. And those beliefs become the blueprint. They shape your patterns. They guide your steps, because what you tolerate doesn't just shape your world, it becomes your world. So ask yourself, what have I allowed too long? What have I explained away? What have I accepted in others that I would never want for someone I love? Those are the patterns. Those are the lessons you haven't learned yet. And the truth is, tolerance without boundaries isn't compassion. It's self-abandonment. You're not being kind. You're being erased. And every time you let it happen, the cycle repeats. But you can teach something new. You can say, this ends with me. I don't raise my voice. I raise my standards. I don't tolerate disrespect, even in silence, because what you allow in your space echoes through your future. And when you finally draw that line, not with anger, but with clarity, the world shifts. It doesn't happen all at once. People might push back, patterns might protest, but your soul will breathe again. Because you're no longer teaching fear how to find you. You're teaching love how to stay. You're teaching respect how to show up. You're teaching you how to choose different. So no, you can't control everything, but you can control what you allow. And every boundary you set is a vote for a different life. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You just need to stop apologizing for expecting what you deserve. Because the moment you stop tolerating the old, the new finally has room to arrive. You feel the urge rising. Say something, do something, fix it now. You want to send the text, make the call, defend yourself, explain, prove, run, anything but pause. Because silence feels like danger, stillness feels like weakness, and waiting feels like losing. So you react. You fall back into the same moves, the same words, the same exit routes you've always taken. And then when it's over, you wonder why you feel empty again, why it feels like deja vu, because you didn't pause, you didn't listen, you didn't check if the response was true or just familiar. Most people don't reflect, they react, because reacting is fast. It gives you the illusion of control. It feels like movement, but real change doesn't happen in motion. It happens in the pause, that painful, uncomfortable space where your old self begs for a way out and your new self hasn't said a word yet. That's where the work is. It's the split second before you send the angry message, the breath before you say yes to something you don't want, the moment before you pick up the habit you swore you'd quit. In that space, you have a choice. You can run the program again, or you can interrupt it, but only if you pause long enough to hear the pattern. That's why it's so hard, because in the pause, you feel everything you've been avoiding. The fear, the ache, the truth. It all shows up in the silence. And most people aren't ready for that. So they fill it with noise, with distraction, with anything that stops them from listening to themselves. But if you can hold the pause, even for a few seconds, you change the game, because that space, that breath, that's where awareness lives. And awareness is the beginning of freedom. You don't need to fix everything in a day. You don't need to become someone new overnight. You just need to pause, to stop reacting long enough to ask, is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to respond? Is this the same mistake in a new outfit? And if the answer is yes, you stop, you breathe, you choose again. That's how patterns break. That's how healing begins. Not in the big breakthroughs, but in the tiny moments where you stop, feel, and listen, because you're not your reaction, you're your awareness. And the more space you create, the more power you take back. So next time the moment hits, don't rush it, don't run, pause, and watch everything change. You've told yourself this story for years. This is who I am. This is just how life is. This always happens to me. And maybe it started as a way to make sense of things, a way to survive the chaos, a way to explain the pain. But now it's a cage, a loop, a false prophecy you keep fulfilling, because the story you repeat becomes the life you live. And if you never update it, you'll never outgrow it. You're not your mistakes. But if you keep identifying with them, wearing them like skin, holding them like truth, you'll keep creating more of them. Not because you want to, but because they feel like home. You keep telling yourself you're unlucky, that love is hard, that success is for other people, that healing is too slow, too late, too much. But what if none of that is true? What if that's just the old voice? The one built in confusion, fear, and protection, still trying to sound like wisdom, because the real you, the aware you, the one reading this right now, that part of you knows this isn't the end. This is the moment everything starts to shift. And it begins by questioning the story. Who told you that you're not enough? Who told you change is impossible? Who convinced you that you have to stay where it hurts? That voice might sound like yours, but it's not you. It's a copy, a recording, a leftover echo from a chapter you've already outlived. You're allowed to rewrite it. You're allowed to say, I'm not who I was. I don't have to repeat this. I'm allowed to grow, to change, to begin again. Because the truth is, your story isn't final. It never was. The ending hasn't been written. The character isn't finished. The plot twist is still coming, and it's not going to come from outside. It starts inside. The moment you choose a new line, I deserve better. I'm breaking the cycle. I don't need to earn peace. I need to allow it. Say those words, even if they shake, even if they don't feel real yet, because repetition made the old story true, and repetition will make the new one true too. You are not stuck. You are repeating. And what's repeated can be rewritten. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it is possible. And it begins right now. You finally broke the pattern. You stopped calling. You walked away. You deleted the number. You quit the habit. And for a while, you feel powerful, free, lighter. But then the silence creeps in. The space opens up. And with nothing to fill it, you start to slip. Not because you're weak, but because you forgot something vital. Breaking a pattern is only half the job. You can't just remove what's broken. You have to replace it with something stronger. If you don't, you'll reach for the old again. Not because you miss it, but because the brain craves familiarity. The body craves rhythm. The heart craves something to hold. You can't just quit chaos and expect peace to show up on its own. You have to choose it, practice it, teach your nervous system to recognize it as safe. You don't just say, I won't yell anymore. You learn how to speak when you're scared. You don't just say, I won't chase love. You learn how to sit with your own company. You don't just say, I'm done with this job. You build the version of yourself that can step into something better. Because empty space is vulnerable space. And if you don't fill it with intention, The past will creep back in. That's how relapse happens. That's how patterns reappear. Not because you didn't try, but because you didn't replace what you let go of. And here's the secret. The new doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be true. It has to feel a little more aligned, a little more peaceful, a little more like the future you're building. You don't need to leap into a new life overnight. You just need to replace one moment at a time. That old reaction, replace it with a breath. That old distraction, replace it with 5 minutes of silence. That old voice in your head, replace it with a new sentence, I'm choosing differently now. And over time, those small replacements add up. They create a rhythm. They build a new foundation. And eventually, you don't miss the old, you don't crave it, you don't need it, because you've built something better. You've proven to yourself not just what you can walk away from, but what you can step into. And that's the real victory. Not just removal, but renewal. So don't stop at the break. Build what comes after. Create what comes next. Because freedom isn't just the absence of what hurt you. It's the presence of what heals you. You've changed. You've worked on yourself. You've broken cycles. You've healed. But then you walk into a room, and suddenly you're small again. You're pleasing. You're performing. You're shrinking to fit the space. Not because you've forgotten who you are, but because the people around you still remember the old version. And they expect her to show up. That's the trap. You can change your habits, change your mindset, change your entire inner world. But if you're surrounded by people who keep handing you your past, it gets harder to hold on to your future. You don't just repeat patterns through choices, you repeat them through relationships, the ones where you keep proving, keep fixing, keep overgiving, keep chasing validation that never lasts. And you tell yourself it's loyalty or love, or that they mean well, but deep down, you feel it. This is the old story in a new voice. And if you're not careful, you'll start performing again, playing the role you worked so hard to escape, just to keep the peace, just to avoid being too different. But here's the truth. If your growth threatens the room, you might not belong in that room anymore. You're allowed to evolve past people. You're allowed to outgrow conversations, to drift from dynamics that no longer reflect your values. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Because who you're around shapes who you become. If you're around people who always expect you to explain yourself, you'll start questioning your truth. If you're around people who don't celebrate your boundaries, you'll start doubting your worth. If you're around people who stay stuck, you'll start wondering if you're selfish for moving forward. You're not. You're honest. And honesty sometimes looks like distance. No, you don't need to cut everyone off. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. Ask yourself, do I feel more like myself with these people or less? Do they reflect who I was or who I'm becoming? Do they water my growth or remind me to shrink? Because you can't build a new life while living in old echoes. And if you want your change to last, you have to protect it, guard it, surround it with people who see you, really see you. Not who you used to be, not who they want you to be, but who you are. And that kind of support, it's not just rare, it's essential. Because the next level of your life will demand a next level of your circle. And it starts with one brave question. Who do I become when I'm with them? Answer that honestly, and you'll know exactly what to do next. You can fake it for a long time. Smile when you're tired. Nod when you want to scream. Say, I'm fine, when your whole world feels like it's cracking. You can convince everyone around you that you've got it together, but you can't lie to your soul. And at some point it starts to ache. Not from the truth, but from the weight of avoiding it. That's how patterns survive. Not through action, but through denial. You can't break what you won't name, and most people never break their patterns because they never have that one honest conversation. The one that starts with, I'm not okay. Not to impress, not to fix, just to admit, I'm tired of this. I keep doing the same thing and I don't know why. I'm scared that I'll never get it right. I pretend too much. I want to stop. That's where it starts. Not with strategy, not with books, not with routines, with honesty. Because when you tell the truth, even just to yourself, you take back the power. You stop running, you stop pretending, and in that moment, you start to understand. You're not weak, you're not lost. You're just exhausted from carrying things you've never spoken out loud. And maybe that truth is ugly, maybe it's messy, maybe it makes your voice shake when you say it. Say it anyway. Because silence won't save you. It will only keep you stuck, trapped in the image you built to survive, but can't breathe inside anymore. One honest conversation can change everything, not because it fixes the past, but because it opens a new door, a door to self-respect, to real healing, to actual choice. Because as long as you lie to yourself, even in small ways, you'll keep repeating what you know. You'll keep sabotaging the good. You'll keep attracting the same kind of chaos. But when you speak the truth, your truth, the pattern shatters. And in the silence that follows, you hear something else, a voice that says, we're still here, we still have time, we're not done yet. That voice, that's your future, waiting for you, not on the other side of perfection, but on the other side of honesty. So have the conversation with yourself, with the mirror, with the memory, with the part of you that's been silent for too long. Ask what you've been too afraid to ask. Say what you've been too ashamed to say. And when you do, everything changes. Not because you're fixed, but because you're finally real. You want to change your life? You have to change your language. Not just what you say out loud, but what you whisper to yourself when no one's listening. Because the words you use are the roads your mind walks every day. And most of us are walking paths paved in old sentences. I always mess this up. I don't deserve better. This is just who I am. This is how it's always been. Sound familiar? That's not a story, that's a spell. A spell that keeps you looping, repeating, shrinking. But there's a different path, and it doesn't begin with strategy. It begins with speech, with breath, with the decision to narrate something new. You want to break a pattern? You have to stop giving it your voice. Start small, catch yourself in the old lines, and rewrite them on the spot. When you hear yourself say, I'm always so stupid, pause. Say, that's the old story talking. I'm still learning. When you think, I'll never find peace, replace it. I'm starting to build it. When the voice says, you'll always be this way, answer back, not anymore. Because the pattern breaker doesn't just behave differently. They think differently. They speak differently. They wake up every morning and decide to reintroduce themselves to life. And no, it doesn't feel natural at first. It feels forced, fake, clumsy. But that's because your brain is used to the old rhythm, the old loop, the old pain. Give it time. Patterns don't break in an explosion. They dissolve through practice, through tiny rebellions, through daily honesty. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right all the time. You just have to be willing to choose something better, one sentence at a time. Say it when it's hard. Say it when it doesn't feel true yet. Say it until it becomes your new internal weather. And soon, you won't just feel different. You'll be different. Not because something magical happened, but because you walked the path. Word by word, choice by choice, moment by moment. That's what it means to break a pattern. Not to erase who you were, but to meet who you're becoming. And the road forward, it's not out there. It's inside your mouth, inside your mind, inside your ability to speak power, where you once spoke pain. So, go ahead, say it now. The line your old self is too scared to say. Say, I'm not repeating this. Say, it ends with me. Because you're not walking in circles anymore. You're walking towards something new. And this time, you're not turning back. You've seen it now. The loop, the lies, the quiet agreements you made with fear. You've stared into the pattern and said, I see you. You've looked in the mirror without flinching. You've asked the hard questions, spoken the quiet truths, and chosen to stop lying to yourself. But here's what no one tells you. Awareness isn't enough. Real freedom is earned. It's not something you feel the moment you wake up. It's something you build every time you do the hard thing instead of the old thing. It's in the moment you want to run, but stay. The moment you want to react, But breathe the moment you hear the voice of your past and answer it with the voice of your future. That's the work, not glamorous, not loud, but powerful in its consistency. Because patterns don't die quietly. They cling, they beg, they try to seduce you back with comfort, nostalgia, and guilt. But you know better now. You've earned your vision, you've earned your peace, you've earned the right to walk away from what you used to call normal. And if you ever forget that, if you ever find yourself slipping back, here's what you remember. Slipping doesn't erase the path. One wrong move doesn't destroy your progress. You are not back at zero. You've done the work. You've planted the seed. And growth doesn't disappear. It just pauses. So start again. Get back up. Not because you have to prove anything, but because you deserve what you're building. You've made too many good choices to let one bad one define you. And freedom? It's not some golden gate you walk through one day. It's a practice, it's a language, it's a set of promises you make to yourself and keep. Even when no one's watching, even when the old life knocks at the door, even when the fear says, come home, you say, I am home, and this time I built it. That's what freedom sounds like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, clear, and deeply earned. So take a breath. Look at how far you've come, not just in steps, but in strength. This is who you are now. Not perfect, not finished, but free, because you chose to be, and you'll keep choosing. One moment at a time. If this message met you where you needed it, ask yourself, what pattern ends with you? What truth are you finally ready to live? Let me know in the comments. And if this moved you or taught you something, please consider subscribing.